Good evening, everyone. We will now move to consideration of the 2025 Comprehensive Plan Amendment Work Program. Commissioners, the 2025 countywide SSPA process has provided an opportunity for members of the public to nominate sites for changes to the land use recommendations in the comprehensive plan. The SSPA process produced 43 nominations. The nominations were presented in a series of community meetings in March and April, and staff has reviewed the nominations for general consistency with planning policies and the SSPA criteria to provide recommendations to inform the Planning Commission. As some of the nominations generated discussion and dissenting preliminary votes during the workshops, I asked commissioners to indicate whether any of the preliminary votes should be reconsidered tonight, and I received 4 requests to do so. Our recommendation to the board on the work program will therefore consist of our votes on the omnibus motion, the overall motion, and the 5 separate nominations, which are as follows. From Franconia, CPN 2025, Roman numeral 4, FR 006, 6404 Telegraph Road will be considered separately. For 100 Mill Road, CPN 2025, Roman numeral 3, HM-028, Reston National Golf Course will be heard separately, considered separately. 2 nominations from Mason, CPN 2025, Roman numeral 1, MA-024, Strawbridge Square, and CPN 2025, Roman numeral 1, MA-022, 6675, Little River Turnpike. And then finally, Mount Vernon, CPN 2025, Roman numeral 4, MV-018, Pohick Road, Lorton. So those 5 will be heard separately from the omnibus. So I'm now going to turn the gavel over to Vice Chair Spain so I can make the following motion. Ready? I move that the Planning Commission recommend to the Board of Supervisors the adoption of the 2025 Comprehensive Plan Amendment Work Program as shown in the Planning Commission handout dated June 4th, 2025, entitled Planning Commission Recommendations on the 2025 Draft Fairfax County Comprehensive Plan Amendment Work Program.
Second. Mr. Chairman, for the Mount Vernon indefinite deferrals that are included in this omnibus, not the current SSPA, but the others that have been on the work plan for a while, the Mount Vernon District wished to leave those on the work plan.
Okay, so that's an amendment to the motion.
Yes, sir.
Let me ask staff if you have a position on this.
We have no problem with that. That is something that we've heard from the Mount Vernon District Office, so if they would like to keep them on the work program, there's no problem there.
Okay, so in the omnibus package, there are some that staff was recommending to us from the current program be removed, 2 of which were Mount Vernon District, and the amendment that's being considered is that those 2 not be removed from the work program.
Second.
It's been moved by Commissioner Clark, seconded by Commissioner Bachelor-Causey. Any discussion? Commissioner Carter.
Just briefly, that's just the 2 Mount Vernon ones. There are several other ones. Okay.
Yes. Any other questions, comments? Okay. All those in favor of the amendment to the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Any abstention? That motion carries. Okay, so now we have an amended motion to consider. Is there any discussion of the main motion as it was amended? Hearing no discussion, all those in favor of the omnibus package as amended, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Nay. Any abstention? That motion carries. So the omnibus package is now.
Okay, thank you, Chairman. The omnibus package is moved for approval by Commissioner Najelski.
I'm sorry, I messed it all up.
Najelski Eichner, and seconded by Commissioner Sargent. Is there any discussion on the main motion?
We don't have to. I apologize.
You've done it?
Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am.
We're good. I guess we'll get started. I'll turn back the imaginary gavel.
We should revote for parliamentary procedure reasons.
I'll ask the clerk or our parliamentarian what's the appropriate. I mean, the whole.
You think we should
Go-
go ahead?
Please go ahead and follow the original plan.
Okay, I'll start again. The omnibus package is moved for approval by Commissioner Najelski-Eichner and seconded by Commissioner Sargent. Is there any discussion?
And you'll have to do the amendment as well.
The amendment has been moved by Commissioner Clark and then seconded by Commissioner Batchelor-Causey. Is there any discussion on the amendment? With that, hearing no discussion, all in favor of the omnibus package, and can I say the amendment?
As amended.
As amended, yes. Please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those who oppose, nay. Are there any abstentions? All right, that motion carries. I am now handing the gavel back to Chairman.
I apologize, folks. That was just eagerness to make progress since we've got such a complicated set of issues before us. So I now open the floor for individual motions on the remaining nominations, the 5 that were pulled out from the omnibus package at the request of the individuals. Commissioner Landgraf, you have a motion.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. Thank you very much. Mr. Chairman, the SSPA nomination CPN 2025-Roman numeral 4-FR-006 6404 Telegraph Road was originally submitted and reviewed by staff and the Planning Commission as a townhome development proposal. On May 1st, 2025, the Commission preliminarily recommended it not be added to the 2025 Comprehensive Work Plan. Since that time, the nominator has revised its concept to reflect a single-family detached development. I believe it is appropriate to further evaluate the new proposal. Therefore, Mr. Chairman, I move that the Planning Commission recommend adding SSPA nomination CPN 2025-Roman numeral 4-FR-006 6404 Telegraph Road to the Comprehensive Plan Work Program as a Tier 3 item. A plan amendment should consider single-family detached residential use on tax map parcels 82-3, parentheses 4, 1A and 1B, with specific attention given to the character, density, and scale of new development, appropriate transitions and buffering to adjacent residential properties, the potential for marine clay soils on site, pedestrian and vehicular access and/or appropriate roadway improvements, and on-site amenities to serve new residents. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
It's been moved by Commissioner Landgraf, seconded by Commissioners Hancock and Cortina. Are there any discussion? Is there any discussion? Hearing no discussion, Commissioner Carter.
I was curious what the staff recommendation was or will be on that.
What's the staff's recommendation?
Our recommendation when it was a townhouse proposal was to not add to the work program. With the concept changes that we've seen on the Telegraph Road site, which go from attached townhouses to detached, there's a drop-in unit type, and then there's also kind of less compatibility concerns. So we're okay with a Tier 2 option.
Okay, thank you.
Or Tier 3, excuse me, Tier 3, yep.
Anything else? Commissioner Carter, for CPN-2025-3-HM-028, Reston National Golf Course.
Okay. This will take a minute or two. I intend as the main motion to recommend not support placement on the staff work rep program for this item. As you remember, we voted 6 in favor, 4 opposed, with 6 in favor, 1 opposed, with 4 abstentions. The reason for this recommendation are, number one, the criteria. I emphatically do not believe that this meets the criteria established in the front of the staff report. It does not avoid a mature residential neighborhood. It doesn't take into account the views, existing homes. It does not focus activities and it doesn't focus development in an activity center. Furthermore, it does not focus on affordable housing. There was no discussion on that. One of the primary purposes of this SSPAs was to focus on affordable housing. 3, it is the only project that doesn't have an illustrative, even a concept illustrative. So it doesn't have sufficient detail that indicates the type of housing, the range of housing, access points, layout, and in short, does not provide an example of outstanding neighborhood planning instead of simply covering the area with an unknown amount of development. And lastly, environmental resources. If you know this area was to remain as open as possible. There are 2 downstream lakes, and that's why this, in part, why this is an open space. You also know the difficult run management plan requires strongly recommends that imperviousness be reduced as much as possible. So covering this with impervious development would be poor form at best. 2, the comprehensive plan. It's not in conformance with the comprehensive plan, and I see people who worked on the comprehensive plan in the audience, so thank you for that. You know, when we started the comprehensive plan process, we had a room full of yellow shirts. They were concerned about lack of outreach, lack of trust in us as a planning commission, the Board of Supervisors, and staff on this. Over a 3-year period, we turned that around substantially. We had numerous meetings. We had a task force like we always do. Task force wasn't enough. We had general meetings. We had separate meetings with people like the Chamber of Commerce. If you remember, we had 2 or 3 subcommittee meetings to talk about this. We had full commission meetings to talk about this. We were asked to go to the Board of Supervisors as a check-in. And the supervisors asked us to be deeply involved, and they even asked us to rewrite some of the chapters, if you remember that. Then it came back to the commission, more subcommittee meetings, and finally we got to the final vote. And when the final vote was taken, I think we just had a handful of people, and they were all in support of the plan at the time. That was our comprehensive plan process. I personally will feel really bad if we don't support that comprehensive plan. It's less than 2 years old. I think it's September of 23 is when that plan was provided. Now, also in the plan was key, open space was a key feature of the Reston plan. Way back in the beginning in 1962, when Robert Simon was working on this, it's 7,300 acres to produce. And so because it was 7,300 acres, Fairfax County was concerned about the amount of development. So they fixed the total amount of development for the project. They created a land use plan for all of Reston. That land use plan had a high-density town center, it had village centers, it had other commercial areas, it had a variety of residential areas, and it had open space. So the concept would be take the density off the open space and put it in the development area. So the open space would not be part of future development, even though in some cases it would be private. Now, also in those days, the open space was private, which is how we do it today, really. It's sometimes disconcerting that we do it that way. Open space primarily owned by the private sector, maintained and operated by the private sector. But no density was available to those open spaces. And that's why we ended up with lakes. That's why we ended up with large open space areas. That's why we ended up with forests. And we also ended up with smaller ones. So that concept plan, comprehensive plan, should have meaning. I know it's not law, except when we want it to be law. And I don't think this redeveloping that substantially conforms to the concept plan. Now, the zoning process. We have a problem here with the zoning process. This open space was part of a development plan that included single-family detached, townhouses, and apartment buildings, all as one application. This open space is the open space for that development. If you try to redevelop that, you're now making all those other developments non-conforming as part of the zoning case. That would be bad form at best. And also, it's non-conforming, maybe all the residential units in Reston, because we have this limitation on the overall. So if you change it, and especially if you take the open space out and put it in another zone, you're challenging the original approval process. So I would be careful to do that. Again, this whole transfer during the review process and coming back later is at best bad form. Now there's an issue of access, and some of you have questioned that, and that's certainly a reasonable concern, access to this. Is it really public accessible? Now, in this case, the golf course is a public golf course. It's owned privately and maintained properly, but it is a public golf course. I'll give you an example of what we mean by in this case. Any person or group can use the course to play on. Public access includes over 40,000 rounds of golf per year on this course. It includes the home course for South Lakes High School. And we know that McLean High School has the other golf course as their home. If we start taking that away or affecting that, it's a problem. Several local matches are played on this course as fundraisers for local charities and nonprofit organizations. Public tournaments that draw people from all over Reston and all over Fairfax County are played on the golf course. Those are all examples of public access. Another aspect, there are actually roads that go through the golf course that provide the only access to the adjacent townhouses. So that's public access. There's been a discussion about the trails. There are trails that supposedly have easements on them for public access. So there is some more limited access in terms of trails. Any concerns about this access is an enforcement issue, I think, and probably ought to be dealt with first, especially if there are concerns. You don't do that through an SSPA process. We do that through an enforcement process. Now, you're probably not going to allow me to go out to the greens and have a picnic anytime you want to. There are going to be limitations on what you can do. That's not an unusual thing on these recreation departments. The county itself limits access, whether it's a soccer field, a pickleball field, tennis courts. The county itself has a schedule, and we know in Fairfax there's always a dearth of these fields and games. So that access is certainly an issue, and I know we're going to talk about that a little bit, but that's how this one works. There is also a concern about being disrespectful and a little bit difficult to work with for the owner. There is now, or soon will be, a pending development plan amendment. This is outside of the SSPA. So some of these things that we're talking about, the standing in terms of the townhouses, the access, the conformance with the zoning ordinance, the sector plan, some of those things can happen as part of that process, or we would be required to access, to be part of that. So people like the county attorney are going to have to weigh in on this. Does this developer have standing? Can they leave out the townhouses as part of their application? This whole zoning issues can happen outside the SSPA process. And my concern is that going ahead without those things, without those issues being resolved, is a problem for us. So, in conclusion, the staff did not support placing the Reston National Golf Course on the work program because of unresolved comp plan and zoning issues that need to be resolved before an amendment should be created. Second, the SSPA does not meet the criteria spelled out by the Board of Supervisors, and the project lacks the minimum detail necessary to make a sound judgment. Three, the SSP has too many unknowns with respect to consistency with the comp plan and other county policies such as the environment. The SSPA has numerous issues with the originally approved development plan, including remaining density and the concern with potentially placing the adjacent development and the entire Reston area into nonconformance. Now, we know that there are 11,000 dwelling units approved for Reston unbuilt. We know that there's another 10 to 20,000 allowed as part of the comp plan. So there's lots of housing already, and all of those have affordable housing in them. Most of them, any of them in the transit station, have far exceed the minimum county standards because of the way the comp plan was written. A little editorializing here, perhaps, suggesting that flattening the site with 2 over 2 townhouses without answering these questions and providing sufficient detail before placement of this project on the work program is the wrong approach, in my perspective. Finally, the Reston Planning and Zoning Committee recommended placement of the Reston, against placement of the Reston National Golf Course on the work program at a vote of 11-4. So for my motion, for reasons stated, I move to support the staff recommendations to not include the Reston Golf Course on the work program.
Second.
It's been moved by Commissioner Carter, seconded by Commissioner Cortina. Is there any discussion?
Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Hancock?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to move forward with a substitute motion for discussion this evening. Mr. Chairman, I move that the Planning Commission recommend to the Board of Supervisors the addition of the following nomination to the work program: CPN-2025-Roman numeral 3-HM-028, Reston National Golf Course to Tier 3. Further recommend that the analysis of a potential comprehensive plan change include, but not be limited to, the following specific considerations. 1, how potential development could connect with existing and planned public transit options, particularly nearby metro stations. 2, the number and types of housing that would best serve the community's evolving housing needs, including how redevelopment could provide affordable and workforce housing. 3, consideration of potential impacts to the PRZ zoning district density provisions, including the maximum persons per acre and strategies to address such impacts. 4, impact to transportation networks and multimodal access. 5, strategies for the preservation or enhancement of tree canopy and vegetation, including visual and screening impacts on adjacent residential areas, and consideration of how the redevelopment would impact existing trails, parks, recreation, and natural areas. And finally, 6, strategies for permanent, publicly accessible areas, such as linear parks, sports fields, playgrounds, or passive open space, accessible to all Reston residents, and the self-reoccurring funding mechanisms needed for their maintenance.
It's been moved by Commissioner Hancock and seconded by Commissioner Bachelor-Causey. Folks, this is a substitute motion. We abide by Robert's rules. Robert's rule says the substitute motion is in fact a substitution if it receives majority support from the Commission. At this point, what we'll do is have the two motions on the table, but we will first vote on the substitute motion and give consideration to the substitute motion when it comes to the vote. So discussion. Commissioner Carter, we've heard from you, so I'm going to give the other commissioners a chance yet, and then I come back to you. Sure. Anyone else? Commissioner Hancock.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate Commissioner Carter's perspective and certainly his hard work on behalf of the community, and I don't suggest an alternative lightly here. During the Reston National Golf Course workshop, there were concerns raised about the county's inability to study some of the critical questions that has been raised in this motion. The future of this golf course, housing affordability, especially outside transit areas, and truly accessible open space. And as planning commissioners, we must take a holistic view of the county's needs today and future generations. And there is a nomination that has been put forward in front of this planning commission. I appreciate Commissioner Carter's perspective that it has not met the standards, but that is before the planning commission, and we need to take it seriously. We have an area here that is strategic to mass transit and work opportunities, a golf course that is otherwise privately owned, and the accessibility may change whether the community prefers it or not. And what I hear from the community is the expectation of permanent, dedicated open space. So given those priorities, I am concerned with the inability to study these issues, to understand what, if anything, is the opportunity, what are we losing by not studying these opportunities, and what are we giving up by allowing something that this county does not control. Now, I understand there are strong, legitimate community concerns, and I do believe that they must be resolved. So let me be crystal clear. Putting this nomination on a Tier 3 does not mean redevelopment is automatically happening, not even close. And it certainly doesn't mean I would necessarily support a project here. What Tier 3 does mean is that we are open to understanding the range of possibilities and allowing our process to work, to ask the hard questions and require the nominator to study community priorities. This includes looking at transportation, it includes looking at housing beyond just numbers, looking at focusing on accessibility, diversity, and proximity, and how to make open space truly permanent and accessible, a critical part of Reston's identity. A Tier 3 also ensures that future decisions remain with those closest to the district. So what I'm suggesting is that given all of the topics raised in this motion, is simply that we gather enough information to understand the possibilities so the choice isn't a zero-sum situation. I appreciate Commissioner Carter's perspective that he would like to see a more fleshed out plan here. But in my view, a comprehensive plan study is not dependent upon a specific project, and the outcome of a comprehensive plan study is not the development plan. It is helping to understand what's possible and to look at what is the vision regardless of any single owner. It is about gathering vital information, and in order to gather that vital information, in my perspective, it should be included in the work plan. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner. Anyone else? I'm going to say this once, and that is, if we can't maintain civility, we'll operate without the audience. Please just keep your comments to yourself. Appreciate you have the emotion behind this, but we're going to sit here in front of you and have a conversation and make a decision, and that we don't need to have the feedback loop from you. It doesn't help one way or the other. So just please keep your comments to yourself. Commissioner Carter?
I have two points. One, this isn't a study. This is a plan amendment. You're supposed to have your ducks in a row before you move forward. This one is not ready. I don't know how many times I can say that. That doesn't mean this can't be studied. It doesn't mean it is on the work program and will be on the work program when they file the development plan amendment, and all those questions have to be answered. Now, my second point is I think we should vote on the main motion first and then the substitute. You can't vote on the substitute before you have the main motion there. And I think that is Robert's rules and the way our procedure is supposed to work. So
let me just clarify that, react to that point, sir. My ruling is, and it's consistent with Robert's rules, did the research. Robert's rules said a substitute has to be acted on first. So that's not an issue. Anything else?
I guess, but I just don't know how you act on a substitute if you don't know what the main motion is.
The substitute becomes the main motion if it's approved. Anything else?
I think that's my job to make the main motion.
Let me speak to offer my perspective on this, since unless other commissioners have a voice. I have a complete respect for both my colleagues on this. I'm not going to support Commissioner Hancock's motion, but I'm doing so with great reluctance because I think, on balance, both perspectives are valid perspectives. Right now, I'm supportive of what Commissioner Carter is saying, but I will say that in my view, the the Reston community is mistaken if it believes that this golf course is going to exist into the future without a continued effort to develop it in some fashion. What our process allows for is a thoughtful consideration for what the future might look like for this property. My view is, this is just my view, is that we have a reluctant owner. A reluctant owner. What I do know, I grew up around golf courses, caddied. Jack Nicklaus, I caddied for his dad. I know golf courses. And what I know is that they require constant attention and constant reinvestment to keep the quality that the golfers expect, and also the environment of welcoming to those who are users. I looked at various ratings of this golf course. Frankly, they're not overwhelming, they're underwhelming. So my view is that at some point, the community really has to look seriously about what might be alternative uses of this site, maintaining all that open space that we all aspire to maintain. But if we don't consciously think about a future for this area, I think we would be mistaken. But again, not this time, but I do think at some point we're going to have to visit that question. Anyone else? Commissioner Cortina?
I've been in this county a long time, and maybe too long. I don't know. You see changes over time, and I remember when Reston was built, and I remember when Reston's town center was built, and this sort of change that has occurred over time. And it's been a good change. It's been a positive change. But I have to tell you, of any community in this entire county that has experienced more change, it has been Reston. And not, down in the roots of it, because it's a very strong community and they've maintained that. But the amount of development that has come in, it was almost like a grand bargain that we're going to bring the Silver Line through here, and we're going to put this in the TOD areas, and we're going to max out the density there in order that you can maintain your PRC and the vision of it without disrupting your community in a way that makes it unrecognizable. And I think that that balance has been occurring. And we saw that there was imbalance a few years ago, and as a result of that, everybody rolled up their sleeves, they sat down together, there were developers and citizens, they didn't always agree, but we came out with something that allowed that harmony to continue. I'm not saying that the golf course is off limits forever and ever either, but I do think we have to respect a process that we just went through 2 years ago. The comprehensive plan in the county state code is that we review it at least once every 5 years. I think 5 years is kind of a good measure. 2 years is just too soon after things have been settled. So I'm with you, Chairman Najelski-Eichner, and I do not support the substitute motion.
Commissioner Hancock.
I appreciate the comments and that and at least some agreement that we need to study this issue. I would argue that we will never study this issue unless there's a direction to staff that we have conversations. And we are going to kick the can down the road. We are never going to resolve these issues unless there's a direction to staff to do it. And we are creating a situation, I fear, and I've raised it during the workshop, that we have this place where people work, live, and play, but people can't actually afford to live there. And I hear these stories, from people who can't afford to live in our county. And I appreciate that there's housing coming in here, and I hope that it does come in. But we are limiting ourselves by only looking at a transit area. There are opportunities here to look at housing opportunities to make sure that people who work in our county can afford to live in Fairfax County. And by not allowing staff to have the conversations to study these issues, we are delaying the future for many, many people. And so I'm not saying that this needs to be developed tomorrow. All I'm saying is that we need to be able to collect the information, allow our county staff to sit at the table, to collect information, to have the conversations, to understand what's possible. Otherwise, we will be back here in 2 years having the same conversation, and there are many people who will not be moving forward into having the opportunities to live in our county. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Carter?
I'm not trying to be argumentative. This is on the staff's work program now, or will be soon. There will be a pending development plan. That is the appropriate place to look at this. SSPA process is not a study process. It's a plan amendment. That is something real, and as something means something. This is the only application of all the ones we've looked at that ends up in a study and not at least knowing what we're actually working for. So if you want to study it, it's on the work program. It's just not on the SSPA program. And that work program will have the county attorney involved in those issues of standing. It will have all of those access issues in it. I think that this, if you want to study it, this is time, and we don't need to put that on the SSPA staff work program. And unless I'm mistaken, I think the staff supports that perspective as well. This was the
just as a point of
recommendation.
order, however, that's something that this commission has not been exposed to. That's not information that we have the benefit of. So if there's...
Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Clark?
If I can understand what Commissioner Carter is saying, that if the staff already have this information, then why is it even on the why are we talking about this right now? If it's already with the staff.
What I'm saying is the developer has told us that they are going to submit, and may have submitted already. They said tomorrow, and this was 2 days ago when we discussed this. They're going to take the remaining density from the existing approvals that is available for the golf course site and submit that as a development plan amendment.
So is this
when
all
they do
mute,
that,
is this a mute point?
It's not a moot point. It's a question of where you put this.
Let me ask
Commissioner
staff,
Carter, hi. Kelly Atkinson.
Ms. Atkinson?
I believe what Commissioner Carter is referring to is the applicant's proposal to submit a zoning application. They believe they have some, that they have the ability to go straight to a zoning application for a portion of the site. Staff has not opined on that. We have not seen that formal application. That's outside of this plan amendment process. So there is not another plan amendment out there currently on our work program. This is an application that would come in directly through the zoning process.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. Unless there's anything else, commissioners, we'll first consider the substitute motion that was made by Commissioner Hancock. In general, basically it says Tier 3 with a set of considerations that should be taken into account if it's on the work program. Is there all those in favor of the substitute motion as proposed by Commissioner Hancock and seconded by Bachelor-Causey? All those in favor signify by saying aye. I'm sorry, we're going to go through just up the line here. So we have, I suspect we'll have a split vote here. So we're going to go by individual. Landgraf? Aye. Carter?
No.
Cortina?
No.
Sargent?
No.
Spain?
Yes, aye.
Najelski-Eichner? No. Hancock?
Aye.
Bennett?
Aye.
Clark?
Aye.
Wang?
Aye.
Bachelor-Causey?
Aye.
Thomas?
No.
So the vote is 7-5 in favor of the substitute. Since the substitute now becomes the main motion, we have to vote once again on the main motion. All those in favor of the motion made by Commissioner Hancock and now as the main motion, I'd ask you to repeat your vote. Landgraf? Aye. Carter?
No.
Cortina?
No.
Sargent?
Yes.
Spain?
Aye.
Najelski-Eichner, no. Hancock?
Aye.
Bennett?
Aye.
Clark? Wang? Bachelor Causey? Thomas? No. And that vote carries. So Commissioner Hancock's motion has been approved, ultimately 8-4, to recommend it on Tier 3 as part of the work program, which would be the recommendation to the board.